Dean Ambrose returns to help Roman Reigns and Jimmy USO. WWE Raw full segment. WWE just pulled off the most emotional and controversial reunion in wrestling history, and if you're not absolutely torn between celebrating the return of Dean Ambrose and questioning whether this cheapens everything the Bloodline saga has built, you haven't grasped what this means for Roman Reigns' entire legacy. Dean Ambrose, the lunatic fringe who walked away from WWE 5 years ago and became Jon Moxley, just returned to save Roman Reigns and Jimmy USO from a vicious assault, reuniting the original Shield members in the most shocking way possible. But here's what has the wrestling world divided: is this the perfect ending to the Bloodline Civil War, or did WWE just press the panic button and sacrifice years of storytelling for one nostalgia pop? Comment right now: is Dean's return to help Roman and Jimmy the most perfect moment of 2026, or is this WWE admitting they can't create new stars without recycling the past? Because this decision has ignited a war in the fanbase that's about to get ugly. Let me break down exactly what happened on Raw, because the setup and execution were designed to manipulate your emotions, and it worked. The show built to a massive main event segment: Roman Reigns and Jimmy USO, the last remaining loyal Bloodline members, facing off against Solo Sikoa's entire faction: Solo, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa. 4-on-2. The odds were impossible. But Roman and Jimmy stood their ground, because that's what family does. The segment started with Roman and Jimmy in the ring, Roman cutting a promo about how the Bloodline is fractured, how his own family turned on him, how Solo's trying to steal his legacy. But through it all, Jimmy stayed loyal. Jimmy never wavered. Jimmy is the one person Roman can trust. The emotion in Roman's voice was real. You could see 5 years of storytelling, the manipulation, the betrayals, the triumphs all coming to a head. This felt like the end of something. Solo's music hit. His entire faction walked out, surrounding the ring from all sides. The visual was terrifying: 4 massive Samoan warriors, all ready to destroy the last remnants of Roman's bloodline. Solo grabbed a microphone and delivered a promo that cut deep. He told Roman that this is what happens when you build your empire on fear instead of respect. He said the family doesn't need Roman anymore. They've evolved beyond him. And tonight, Solo was going to take the Ula Fala, take the tribal chief position, and erase Roman Reigns from Bloodline history. The fight started and it was a massacre. Roman and Jimmy fought valiantly, but the numbers were too much. Jacob Fatu hit Jimmy with a devastating moonsault that left him motionless. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa isolated Roman in the corner, hitting him with super kicks and strikes while Solo just watched, smiling. Roman was bleeding. Jimmy couldn't move. The crowd was begging for anyone to help them. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was family destruction. And then it happened. The lights cut to black. Total darkness for what felt like an eternity but was probably 10 seconds. The familiar static sound filled the arena. And when the lights came back on, Dean Ambrose was standing on the stage, tactical vest, wild eyes, looking like he never left. The crowd erupted: shock, joy, disbelief all at once. Dean Ambrose is here. Dean Ambrose is back. But Dean didn't run to the ring immediately. He stood on the stage, staring at Roman. The camera caught Roman's face: confusion, hope, desperation. Would Dean help? After everything that's happened, after Dean left WWE, after Dean built Jon Moxley into a legend without WWE, would he save Roman now? The tension was unbearable. Dean tilted his head, smiled that unhinged smile, and sprinted to the ring. He exploded into Solo's faction like a man possessed. Paradigm shift to Tonga Loa. Wild strikes to Tama Tonga. A suicide dive that took out Jacob Fatu. And then Dean turned to Solo, the man trying to usurp Roman's position, and the two of them went to war. Roman recovered, Jimmy got back up, and the three of them, Roman Reigns, Jimmy USO, and Dean Ambrose, stood united against Solo's faction in a visual that gave people chills. The brawl continued for another 5 minutes of absolute chaos. Tables broken, chairs used, bodies everywhere. Finally, security and officials separated everyone. Solo's faction retreated up the ramp, furious but outmatched. And in the ring, Dean, Roman, and Jimmy stood tall. Roman and Dean locked eyes. No words, just a nod. An acknowledgement of shared history, shared brotherhood, and a bond that apparently transcends time and circumstance. The crowd was chanting, "This is awesome," so loud it shook the building. Raw went off the air with that image, the three of them, beaten but victorious. Here's why people are absolutely divided about this moment, and both sides have legitimate arguments. The pro-Dean return camp says this is perfect storytelling. The Shield was family before the Bloodline ever existed. Dean, Roman, and Seth were brothers who conquered WWE together. Having Dean return to save Roman when Roman's actual blood family has turned on him creates a powerful message: chosen family is stronger than blood family. Dean coming back proves that some bonds can't be broken, no matter how much time passes or how far apart people grow. Furthermore, Dean's return saves the Bloodline story from becoming stale. Roman and Jimmy versus Solo's entire faction was getting repetitive. The good guys were always outnumbered. They kept losing. Fans were getting bored watching the same beatdowns week after week. Dean's return changes the dynamic, evens the odds, and creates fresh matchups we've never seen. Dean vs Jacob Fatu, Dean vs Solo, potential Shield reunion matches. This revitalizes a storyline that was running out of steam. But the anti-Dean return camp has equally valid points, and their anger is justified. Dean Ambrose left WWE because he was creatively miserable. He spent 5 years as Jon Moxley building a legacy that proved he didn't need WWE. He had classics in AEW, in New Japan, on the independents. He became a world champion without Vince McMahon or Triple H's blessing. He was happy, fulfilled, and free. And now he's back, helping the most WWE establishment character imaginable, participating in the exact type of overbooked faction warfare he used to criticize. That's not character consistency, that's selling out. Moreover, Dean's return buries the current roster. WWE looked at their entire active roster and decided that none of them were worthy of helping Roman. Not Cody Rhodes. Not Seth Rollins. Not any of the young, hungry stars who could have used this spot to elevate themselves. Instead, WWE brought back someone who hasn't been in a WWE ring in 5 years because they don't trust their current talent to generate the same emotional response. That's not building the future, that's admitting the present isn't good enough. Let's talk about what this does to Jimmy USO specifically, because he's the forgotten man in this reunion. Jimmy has been the loyal soldier throughout the entire Bloodline saga. He stayed with Roman when G left. He never turned. He sacrificed his own career opportunities to be Roman's right hand. And his reward is being overshadowed by Dean Ambrose's return. The story should be about Jimmy's loyalty being rewarded, about Roman and Jimmy as an unbreakable team. Instead, it becomes about Dean, and Jimmy gets pushed to the side as the third wheel in a reunion that isn't even about him. The nostalgia factor is WWE's greatest weapon and greatest weakness. Yes, seeing Dean and Roman together again creates an instant emotional reaction. Fans who grew up watching The Shield feel something powerful when they see those guys reunite. But WWE is so addicted to nostalgia that they can't tell stories without it. They can't build new stars without bringing back old stars. They can't create original moments without recycling past moments. At what point does nostalgia become a crutch that prevents WWE from moving forward? Here's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to ask: how long is Dean staying? Did he sign a multi-year deal to become a full-time roster member, or is this a short-term agreement where he does a program, makes his money, and leaves again? If it's the latter, then this return accomplishes nothing long-term. WWE gets their WrestleMania moment, Dean gets his payday, and 6 months from now we're right back where we started: Roman needing help, Jimmy being outnumbered, and no sustainable solution because Dean is gone again. The Shield dynamic has changed fundamentally since they last worked together. When the Shield originally formed, they were equals 3 hungry guys trying to make their mark. Now, Roman is a legend, a multi-time champion, the man who defined an era. Dean is a returning star trying to recapture past glory. Jimmy is the loyal soldier. Those are not equal positions. The power dynamic is completely skewed, which means this can't be a true Shield reunion. It's Roman's team with Dean and Jimmy as his helpers. Let's address the Seth Rollins absence because it's glaring. The Shield was 3 men. Where's Seth in all this? Is he joining later to complete the reunion? Is he going to be positioned against Roman and Dean, creating Shield vs Shield? Or is WWE just ignoring Seth and pretending the Shield only needs 2 members? Each option creates different storyline directions, but WWE's refusal to address it immediately creates confusion instead of intrigue. The Solo Sikoa situation is now critical. Solo has been positioned as the new tribal chief, the next generation of Bloodline leadership. But with Dean's return evening the odds, Solo's advantage is gone. How does Solo respond? Does he recruit more people to his faction? Does he get smarter and more vicious? Or does WWE just have him lose repeatedly now that the good guys have reinforcements? Solo's next move determines whether he's a made star or just another guy who gets fed to returning legends. Here's what WWE must do to make this work long-term: give Dean a clear motivation beyond just helping Roman. Why did Dean come back now? What changed? What does Dean want? Without clear answers, Dean is just a plot device, a deus ex machina who shows up because the story needed him, not because it makes character sense. Strong storytelling requires motivation, not just moments. The WrestleMania implications are massive. We're likely headed towards some version of Roman/Dean/Jimmy versus Solo/Jacob Fatu/Tama Tonga, or some configuration of that. That's a money match that will draw. But it's also a match that prioritizes spectacle over storytelling. It's WWE saying, look at all these names in one match, instead of building individual programs that make each person feel important. What I need from you, and this is absolutely critical, tell me in the comments if Dean Ambrose returning to help Roman and Jimmy is the perfect storytelling moment, or if this is WWE's panic button because they couldn't build new stars. Tell me if you're excited for Dean's return or disappointed he came back to WWE instead of staying loyal to the principles he built as Jon Moxley. And tell me honestly, does Jimmy USO deserve more credit, or is it right that Dean gets all the attention? Like this video if you're thrilled about Dean's return regardless of the circumstances. Share it if you think WWE is too dependent on nostalgia and needs to focus on building new stars. Subscribe if you want me tracking every development Dean's matches, his role in the Bloodline War, whether Seth joins, and if this return becomes legendary or just another wasted opportunity. Dean Ambrose is back in WWE. He just saved Roman Reigns and Jimmy USO from destruction, and the Bloodline Civil War just became infinitely more complicated. This is either the most perfect reunion in wrestling history, or this is WWE admitting they can't tell compelling stories without recycling their past. The Shield brothers are reunited, at least two of them. The Bloodline is at war with itself. And WrestleMania season just got the biggest shakeup imaginable. Now we see if WWE can deliver a story worthy of Dean's return, or if they just brought him back for a short-term buzz that accomplishes nothing long-term. Family helped family. Brothers stood together. And the wrestling world is divided on whether this is brilliant or desperate. The only certainty? Nothing will ever be the same.